All right, guys. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited to have these wonderful people here. I've had this idea to have some of my favorite bloggers on for a while, and not just favorite bloggers. It's like there's people in the community who I particularly look up to and follow closely what they're doing and how they do it and what they're about. And I've got four of them here, and this is what I would call like the all-star team. So first, I just want to thank you all for being here. And starting with John, go introduce yourself and what you do.
All right. Well, first, thank you so much for the invitation, Matt. Thanks for bringing us all together. And please know that the feeling is mutual. I know we're all big fans of what you're doing here and bringing the community together. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So my name is John Mauro. I'm a professor at Penn State University. And on the book side, I work together with Beth very closely on, on Grimdark Magazine and Before We Go blog.
So I didn't mean to cover your face there, Charlie. Go ahead.
That's right.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Someone has to have that position. So yeah, it's probably better it's me.
So just introduce yourself, Charlie, and
sure.
what you do and where you do it.
Charlie Cavendish. Outside of books, I'm a dad to 3 children, 2 pugs, which are snoring under my table. So apologies if you get any noise from them. And yeah, but recently, a few months ago, I started with the FanFiAddict team, which has been an awesome experience. So just sort of trying to read, do some reviews, support the community where I can. And I think, as I said before we started, this is a sort of pinch me moment that all these people that I've followed and looked up to in the community, and suddenly, what am I doing here? So yeah, it's awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Mahir.
Oh, you're muted, Mahir.
You're muted, brother. All right. So while you're figuring that out, Beth, you go ahead.
Hi, my name's Beth Hagler, and I am the editor of Grimdark Magazine and the editor and owner of Before We Go blog. And I work hand in hand with Mr. Mauro over there. Yeah, we pretty much run the magazine. Him and I, we do all the fun stuff together. So.
Yeah, like interviewing Patrick Rothfuss. Like, well, come on.
Yeah, we're in the presence of we're in the presence of the professionals here. So
yeah.
So Mahir, did you get?
Can you hear me now?
I can. Yes,
Okay,
absolutely. Introduce yourself, brother.
Well, thank you. Well, sorry about that. Thank you, Matt, firstly, for having me. I'm Mahir Wanchu. I'm part of the Fantasy Book Critic team. I know Beth, so hello, Beth, because she's really one of my favorite people. I have been blogging since quite a while now, and I'm very glad to be over here because I get to meet John finally. I get to meet Charlie finally because I've met Beth, but and then I get to meet you as well, Matt, and get to hang out with you. Otherwise, my Saturday afternoon would be kind of boring, not much to do. But so thank you for having me.
Of course. Oh my goodness. Thank you guys. And not that anybody didn't know all that about you wonderful people. I like to kind of start with, what you do, because that's what really means so much to everybody in this community. I think particularly, it's not just that we like reading, or for me, the written reviews is kind of an intimidating thing. And that's probably the source of how I got to know you guys. And it's something I want to make or hone that craft a little bit better for myself. So I like what you guys do, and I look to that for my own honing of the craft, if you will. But I've got some really fun questions that I kind of pondered for a while. Kind of wanted to switch it up a little bit and not just like the typical interview questions. So there's a couple that are a little deep, but I think you guys are the perfect people to handle it.
Oh, bring it.
I've got my coffee. It's all good.
All right. So being that we have the luck and the opportunity to see a lot of the publishing side, whether it's from an author or publishers themselves, I would love to know, starting with John, what do you think the future of publishing looks like? And particularly, do you think that line between traditional publishing and self-publishing is disappearing?
Great question. So I think we've seen a revolution in publishing over the past decade, or perhaps a little bit more than a decade, with the rise of self-publishing. And I would say that probably the majority of the books that I read now are self-published. And when you see, all the different authors coming with all these creative ideas, and a lot of times it's, stories that you probably wouldn't see through traditional means. So I think that, we're already seeing a revolution in progress here. I don't think that means, the demise of traditional publishing or anything like that. I think that both are going to be supported going forward, and probably you'll continue to see the rise of indie. But I do think the next big challenge, it's not traditional versus indie, but a challenge that both are going to have to face together. And that is the rise of artificial intelligence and, AI generated content. We're already starting to see this AI generated garbage just flooding Amazon with, fake books and people just trying to get a few cents from everyone who accidentally stumbles upon it on their Kindle or something. But this is going to be a huge problem across all of publishing, and it's going to, or the attempt is that it's going to cheapen what everyone does. And so we need to, I think, stand united against this and, figure out the best way to address this, both on the indie side as well as the traditional publishing side. And it's not just fiction, it's across the nonfiction world too. So, for example, I'm the editor-in-chief of a technical journal called Journal of the American Ceramic Society. And, we've detected a couple of papers that have been submitted that were obviously written, at least in part, by AI and needed to reject those. And, it's across the board. So that this is, a major challenge.
Wow.
And from a putting together a magazine standpoint, I want to have an open call for stories. But it's very difficult to weed through AI generated stories versus real stories. At least, there's software and stuff that's coming out that helps you along with that. But when it's, it's me and Adrian, or, me, Adrian, and John going through 200 stories or 300 stories, it's really difficult.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad that you brought that up, John, and Beth, that you touched on it. So there was two questions that I formed in my mind when John started talking about this AI. One is, how the hell do you tell? How do you go about diagnosing this problem with 100%? You can't just guess, right? There's probably characteristics. I guess the second isn't a question, but my wife is a graphic designer, and she is telling me all the time, and I didn't think of it in her line of work at first, but she's like, I can tell an AI generated piece of art like instantly. And as a graphic designer, she puts hours into these minute details. And so I think that point, John, is a very good one. And I think it goes far beyond, I guess, what I thought was possible.
Yeah, and it's a whole new world of plagiarism out there. We have traditional plagiarism checking tools that basically compare text that gets submitted versus all published text that is out there. And what that is looking for is just direct copy and paste. But with AI, whether it is art or text, what it's doing is kind of being trained on the existing either literature or art, and then generating something new that isn't a direct copy and paste, but kind of just based on what it has learned from everything that has been out there so far. And this problem of how can we get the next generation of plagiarism detection software that can actually detect AI generated content accurately, that's a really difficult problem, because it's the inverse problem. So having like an AI code that generates something is actually a lot simpler than solving the inverse problem of going back and telling with 99% confidence whether it was generated through AI. So someone like your wife who is trained in that area, that she's able to tell from her intuition and from her experience, and it may be difficult to put into words exactly what it is that she's using to tell. With our technical journals, we buy software that is being upgraded, but it's always going to be behind the software that is used by people to generate AI content. So we're relying on our team of editors to really go in there and say that this is some unusual wording. And there tends to be a lot of these kind of flowery adjectives used that are not appropriate for the context that they're in. That's a giveaway.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to raise a point just quickly, because what you said, Matt, about the graphic, your wife being involved in graphic design, this this year's SPFPO, we had a big cover controversy. Until now, there was a cover contest as well. And, we always would have covers which were like so fantastic. Just literally on this ongoing edition, we had a cover which was beloved by people. And, it was a top-rated cover. And then turns out that it was the artist lied to everyone. Basically, he was using AI-generated content. And the funny part is artists were able to recognize it. So right now, it's like people who are involved in graphic design, they can quickly point it out because the AI-trained software is not good enough. To John's point as well, because like you mentioned, there's some funny sentences as well. So there, where you kind of get a sense like this is not from a human person because it's either too smooth or it's either not smooth enough. But eventually, and as with the case with technology, it's going to make a jump until the point where it's going to be indistinguishable. Maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, maybe even sooner.
Wow.
My hope is that that people, because there's always like it's kind of like a cops and droppers thing. If people are going to exploit it, there's going to be hopefully people who are going to be like, let's come up with tools to catch this. So that's my hope. And there's also the problem of publishers. Sorry, I'll stop now.
I was going to say, is it possible to talk about traditional and self-publishing where if you've got a trust in an author that's something that it's going to come down to, I know that Beth's a brilliant author and I trust that she's not using, you'll have that level of trust in the community to say, well, I can't know if these other things are AI or not. To John's point, and say, well, maybe that's where that community can come together and say, well, you know what, as I said, rally round the wagons around, and we won't try to allow this. But you probably, as you said, you probably can't stop it.
That's how it's been.
Out of the bag.
That's how it's been for the magazine. Going out and finding content and stuff. I haven't had as many indie authors as I would have loved to, because I've had to go by. At least the last few issues, I've had to go by either existing work that's been published for quite a long time, or I'd have to go by, well-known authors that I know haven't or can't
trust
use AI. Yeah, and that's not how we want to do things. We have an open call in March, our first one. Since the beginning of this AI stuff. So we're going to see how it goes. But in the future, we loved supporting our indie authors and stuff at GDM. It's very important to us, but it's just, it hasn't been an option until now with software and detection and things.
Wow.
So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
What a good point. So I guess when I first got into the community, which again wasn't a very long time ago, maybe a year now, I had noticed, okay, I've heard of this AI thing. People have been talking about it for a while, but there's a reality about it now. It's not just like this concept. And I think it takes the bridging of educating people, especially such as your editors, and maybe training them to notice these things. And that just becoming like maybe more of a common knowledge to really understand it. Because me, again, not until very recently did I see that influx and evidence of things like that happening. And really, it's just word of mouth, like from you guys in posts and whatnot. And again, my wife, it's like, I kind of noticed too, like the graphics that she showed me was like of this bus. And okay, it's kind of like an abstract bus. You may like think it's something else, perhaps. It's a very generalization of certain aspects of what a graphic designer would typically make a bus look like. Does that make sense? Like there was a word, and it was just like squiggles and stuff like that. So there was a few characteristics I did feel shouted at me, but yes, I'm in that process of learning a lot more. So I'm glad you brought that up, John. Man, what a wonderful point.
Yeah.
Art-wise. Sorry.
Story.
No, go ahead. Tori says, seeing AI books being touted as a viable option to write faster or not have to go through the work of building a story makes me absolutely sick as an author. Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah. And, this is a huge problem in education too. So as a professor, when I give assignments for students to write an essay, I have to make it really clear that this needs to be their own work. They need to write it themselves. And, but it's not just that, it's like college entrance essays as well. I mean, it's so easy for people to cheat nowadays.
Even at my kids' school, at my kids' high school, probably similar. I mean, to a lesser degree, to say the university, that they've got this checking stuff that goes through. It's probably fairly basic, but they even face it there. That the kids get a question, they go to Chat GPT, chuck in, what happened in this bit of history, and it spits something out to them, and some will always take the easier path.
To Tori's point, I think Michael Fletcher also touched on this. Like he said online, I remember there was a tweet from him saying, the craft of developing a story is what gives him joy. And if you take that out and use AI to just develop a story, you're really not doing the work that is needed to develop. And you won't really progress as a writer, right? You're just using an artificial clutch, which is not even the good tool out there, or just not even a tool specifically to develop your story. And just putting it out, it doesn't make any sense. Also, just a quick shout out to Tori, Haley, and Joao as well, and Taylor. Hey.
And Taylor.
Hey, everyone.
And Steve.
There's so many wonderful people out there, man. Thank you guys for being
all the good people are watching.
Yeah. I'm absolutely going to throw your guys' comments up. It's going to be brief because I'm not going to cover my man Charlie or Mahir up.
It's what happens when you come from down under. You get covered by the comments. So.
There's certain there's these different options I have, and for some reason some allow the screen to shrink and then that comment go under it. I don't know how to format it that way yet, but it's in the works. Cool. So I apologize, guys.
I'm the newbie here, so I think the newbie has to have the face covering, and then
Charlie has a bad habit of being human. And he is self-critical. Oh my gosh, man! What he does is just so amazing. I'm gonna make him blush now. So love
you already.
So wonderful first topic. I'm going to continue around the horn, and if you have anything to add to the question, please do. If not, we'll move to the next person, because I know that we covered a lot. But Charlie,
I do actually have something to add to that.
Yeah, please do.
For GDM, Adrian and I have had long discussions about art and stuff. Just to know how important getting actual real art is for him and I. Both of our moms are professional artists. And so getting we have a wonderful artist that we've been working with since forever. And we'll continue working with him, but it's super important to us to actually have AI-free artwork. It's in the contract, it's because when my mom saw what Midjourney could do, she teared up. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it's really important.
I also want to draw a quick, everybody's eye to Joao's comment, because I feel that is 1000% true. The self-pub keeps filling in the gaps in reader demand that traditional refuses to. That is so true. There's, thanks to self-published authors, indie authors, they come out with books which indie publishers, didn't forget publishers, they're agents who reject them. People would not get agents because of that. And the fact that nowadays they can publish their story. And we have gotten so many incredible authors and so many incredible stories, even, for example, Joao himself as well. And I'm so glad for that. So just wanted to, because you had a question about Indian.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I wanted to go make a comment as eloquently as John did, but I think, I can't remember who said about it. I read somewhere that the sort of difference, between traditional and self-publishing is that the traditional is producing something that either it thinks the public wants, or it's telling the public it wants, versus self-publishing authors are really writing the story that they want. And I think that a lot of times resonates with people, to Giles' point of filling in those gaps. And there's so many different choices out there that you'll find, either as an author, you'll find an audience could find an author. And just myself, probably just sort of going down this reviewing journey. Last year, when I was doing my books of the year, I went, I haven't, and not on purpose, I'm not anti-trad at all, I hadn't read a single traditional published book all year. Every single book was self-published. That was 25 odd books. And, very rarely did I have any that I didn't enjoy. So, you know, that's for me spoke volumes about what the quality that's out there.
I think that's beautifully said. And speaking of Joao, like probably one of my favorite reviews ever of his book came from Charlie himself. So he is a huge fan of Joao. So
yeah,
absolutely dig it.
And he's a very nice guy as well. I was able to meet him when I was in London a month and a half ago now, where it was well, there's actually a whole table of authors, which was pretty awesome. So
those pictures were cool, man.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. So yeah, we met up for a few beers. I think Joe was there, Matrell Faywood, Joe Lee. Oh goodness, I'm going to forget. So I'm forgetting people. Norbert, who wrote Sealed Empire, was there.
Megan's too, right?
Wait, this was
Megan's.
Yeah, Matt was there, and Tom Bookvid as well. So it was like this surreal sort of meeting of people in London, which was, you know, that was cool.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of Joao, guess who's joining the Before We Go blog team?
Oh, no way. Go Joao.
Nice.
Yeah. And I just
Love
want to
that.
make sure that, you know, for Sphinx, for his book and everything, I had nothing to do with it. I completely stepped away from any reviewing of his book just to keep it as
That's a
on board as
professional way to do it.
possible. Yeah, I didn't want any questions or anything.
No,
You know, I had
the right
nothing
way.
to do with it. Yeah.
Commendable.
I think it's
I love that.
It's a damn fine book. It'll stand on its own feet.
You heard it here first.
So as far as that question, the future of publishing and that line between traditional and self-published, that line disappearing, is there anything else that anybody would like to add to that?
Self-publish is great because they can let it all hang out.
Yep.
I think the biggest reason I asked this is I was just chatting with Michael R. Miller, and I felt myself, by the way, man, he is one of those authors that just makes me feel cozy. He takes me on an adventure. He takes very recognizable tropes and brings that modern spin to it. And I just absolutely love Ascendant and Unbound. And but he brought up the point of, and I felt like it was a passionate point that he brought up when he did, of not saying traditional published or self-published, and just we're authors. And I can understand why he would feel that way. But I also feel that there are those differences in what traditional publishing, beautifully said by, I think it was Charlie or Mahir, where they're kind of telling the people what they want to read, or maybe putting somebody in a box, and you hear these stories. There's those certain aspects where I feel like I have to separate, because there's two different processes, and they're not 100% different. There's a lot of the same aspects that go into both. But I think I brought it up because I've seen the passion, or felt that passion behind him just wanting to be an author. And I can see that side of why he would want that. Does that make any sense to you guys, what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Also, just for, Michael Miller, like, lovely person. I got to meet him last year when I went to BristolCon. Super guy. Also super successful guy as well. Like, his numbers are probably more than most of the traditionally published authors as well. I agree with this point. I don't think, readers would like to think of it that way, guys, but I think it's still the traditional publishing, which is still like a little bit hesitant to kind of call everybody just authors, because they still want to cling on to their prestige of being a traditionally published thing. I don't think some publishers are, of course, with Orbit and with Tor now actually welcoming indie authors and, getting them signed on. That means they're looking at the indie field as well. But I think there's still a slight stigmata in, in publishing of, like, if you're just an indie, you're not as good as, a traditionally published author. Now, is that true?
So not true.
No, it is not true at all.
So not true.
Will White blows up every time his book is released. His book is #1 on Amazon. He has never been traditionally published. Does he want to be traditionally published? No. But, so there's that. But I think to Michael's point, yes, that would be the ideal way to go. I don't think maybe publishers want that, because then they they would have to swim with the likes of everyone, and I think they still want to keep that separation.
Right. I mean, it's a different business model. With traditional publishing, it's corporations, and they exist to maximize their profit, right? So they're going to select the books that they feel like are going to sell the best. They keep, a large chunk of the books that get sold. But they also act as a gatekeeper for what gets published. Whereas with indie, the authors, it's purely a project of passion, right? So whatever it is that they want to publish, they can put it out there exactly how they want to say it, with exactly the art that they want, marketed the way they want. Now they don't have, the big machine behind them about, the corporation to help get it into all the bookstores. But when they find their readership and find their market, then that's just such a win for them. And in terms of the amount of money that they would get, since they don't have to share it with a publisher, they actually get to keep a larger fraction of that compared to traditional publishing.
The interesting thing also is that with trad publishing, the middle tier authors don't get the backing like the higher authors do too. They have to do
their own marketing. I was reading that just the other day, someone saying you thinking that I think it was maybe on the SFF Addicts podcast with Andy Pelgrim saying that even if you're exactly the point you just made there, Beth, that if you're mid-tier author, traditionally published, but you're still out there having to press flash, get out there and do all that work, but you don't get the same slice of the pie that John mentioned.
I think that you guys have it was the self-realization listening to you guys just now, because when he said that to me, I felt very self-conscious, because never would I ever mean to segregate those two passions as not the same thing that starts in all those authors. But there is a difference in many different aspects. And I think you bring it up. So the woman that wrote Fourth Wing,
Rebecca
Yarros.
Yeah.
So what Mahir said, I think, rings very true with that. Putting her with, because as an indie author, you can put out anything. I mean, and not everything's going to be wonderful. So keeping that, and this touches on John's point, the gatekeeping that may be happening as far as, okay, so this is a better writer, or grouping everybody together wouldn't be fair, or along those lines. It made me feel self-conscious, and I almost kind of told him that. And in my mind, when I think of an author, I don't think in those two different areas. But when it comes to the business side and pursuing that knowledge, is what on this channel is, and what I love to do with this channel, knowing the differences is important to me, because there are. So I'm glad we touched on that.
I think Rebecca comes from an entirely different aspect that's come up in publishing, book talk. There's this huge driving force in book talk now that is pushing authors. They have their own section at Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
And I think she comes from that. Was she self-published before?
I don't think so. I think she had published something else. I think this was a curated book, because everybody who's read it has said it fulfills all the tropes. It is very by the numbers. Yeah. And Beth, to your point, it works because Book Talk loves certain things. Book Talk doesn't want a diverse read. They want certain things, and it's like the lit RPG crowd. The lit RPG crowd. There are lit RPG authors who are so wildly famous and so wildly rich, but more than half of us have never heard of them. And they have a dedicated set of readers who want just that and that and that over and over and over again. I think it's similar to Book Talk as well. They want a certain thing. Maybe it's romantasy. Maybe it is, magical fantasy school, or maybe it is just pure romance, or dark romance, so to speak. But they want that, and they want only that. Nothing wrong with that. But
that's a huge part of Book Talk. It's where a lot of smut authors get a lot of their fame, is through word of mouth and Book Talk.
I've seen that.
Hey, Tony.
Hey, Mark, so man, I'm so glad that I kind of wanted to ask that question, because you guys knew would bring a whole nother level to it, because it's important. I feel like that topic between the traditionally published authors and their process and self-published authors and their process is something that's kind of a hot topic right now, and one that I'm glad that you guys touched pretty deep on. So starting with Beth, do you have so this is based on experience, your personal experience, and we'll go from Beth to Mahir, Charlie to John. Do you have a specific interview or experience being in this community or your blog that has brought value, like particularly like something you will never forget, that special moment? And if there's multiple, talk about it.
Okay. Well, obviously Patrick Rothfuss and Brandon Sanderson were amazing. Jim Butcher was pretty incredible. Although I'd like to interview him on like a YouTube channel or a video or something to get more in depth. But he was my unicorn for years. I'm such a Butcher fan. Who else?
Dresden.
You're gonna have to pardon me because I have such a hard time remembering names. What's his name?
You have like Beard of Darkness syndrome right now.
I do
that all the time.
I have such a difficult time remembering names. Raymond Feist.
Oh,
Raymond Feist was pretty amazing.
Bet you're setting this bar so high.
That's like up here.
Brandon Sanderson, Jim Butcher, Patrick Rothfuss, Raymond Feist. It's like
Neil Stevenson. Neil Stevenson was pretty great. Snow Crash got me into cyber.
Great novel.
Yeah, I love Snow Crash, so that was a big deal for me.
It's a cyberpunk novel.
Yeah.
I have not read my first cyberpunk novel yet.
Snow Crash is amazing.
He's the godfather of cyberpunk. Yeah.
Snow Crash.
It's all good. Okay, Beth wins. We just say that now.
I don't think who else.
Unless someone's chatted to Stephen King recently, none of us are winning, I don't think.
There's a bunch of urban fantasy authors that I completely adore that I got to talk to, which means a lot too. Sherilyn Kenyon and Kim Harrison, and who is very sweet, by the way. Who's wonderfully sweet.
The biggies of the UF world.
I love that. So given the platforms that you're with and that you've created as well, given these opportunities to speak with some heroes of yours. Love that. That's what I'm after. That's so awesome, Beth. I'm so happy to hear that.
It was amazing.
Mahir.
See, coming after that, anything I say, it's just
no.
I'm not going to say anything.
Twinkly potatoes, but nevertheless, she those are some, because those Beth's interviews, and I have told her this as well. Like, I love her interviewing style. She makes the authors or the person who's about to be interviewed feel very calm, and she gets more answers out of them. So that's kudos to you, Beth. I don't have, I love interviewing authors via email because, of course, this was the only way we could do, back from the early late 2010s onwards as well. I don't have any big names, honestly. But some of my favorites have been, I got to interview Ilona Andrews. She's the husband wife team have been a favorite of mine. I got to interview Craig Schaefer. She's another, favorite author of mine. The one thing I feel the saddest about, though, is I used to read and love, I still do, David Gemmell. And that was one of my dreams that, this was back when I was in India, it was my hope that, one day I'll get to go to the US, maybe I'll get to visit UK, and, I'll get to interview him via email or something like that. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2006, and that has been the biggest regret of my blogging life, that I never got to meet or just tell him how much his books meant to me, or even get to interview him. But on the small side, on the small positive side, the one thing which has been really cool for me, thanks to blogging, is authors have started putting me into their books, and I love that. Like Michael R. Fletcher named a sword, after my last name. So there's Demon Sword in his, Blackheart books. There's Richard Nell made a panther creature, again named after me. I am in one of Rob J. Hayes' upcoming books as well. You should be really excited, Matt, because it's the God Eater books.
Yeah, you see my post.
Yeah, I'll wait for you to see if you recognize which character I am. And so, yeah, it's these small things where I get to, authors. I get to help them if they have questions about Hindu mythology or Indian mythology. I love to help them with that. So that has been one of my big things, so to speak. Again, small potatoes, but still, it's wonderful.
No, so when I asked this question, so we all have like those highlights in our experiences, but it's what's personal to who I'm asking. Beth gave me hers, you've given me yours, and that is exactly what I'm after. And I love that. What is important to you, man, and all the authors that you mentioned are just really stand-up guys and gals. So very cool to hear. Charlie.
Wow. I've been doing this as long as everybody else, so I don't think I can pull any big names out of that. Although saying that, after I finish today, I am going off to meet a certain Mr. Carhill in Sydney for catch up. So if you ask me next week, I could probably drop that one in. So
that's amazing. So
what are you
doing particularly?
Look, he just put a message out. I think he's in Sydney, and he's going to have a bit of a catch up and a book signing in the city. So after I finish here, I'm going to go and say hi. And
very jealous.
I think a 7 foot tall large guy wandering around the park should be pretty easy to spot. So
yeah,
he's 7 foot tall.
No, he's not quite 7 foot tall, but he's pretty tall.
6'5". But he's tall.
So it's probably weird that I know this, but it's because he's an inch shorter than me. I'm 6'5", he's 6'4".
Oh,
yeah. Okay. Well,
right.
There we go.
And I had no idea. Like, I thought he was short the whole time. Like, I said, I heard that Ryan's tall. And naturally, as a tall person, you pay attention to that.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm not tall. I'm about 5'10", so I'll be up to his shoulder, I think. So
Stephen Orion's tall. He's like 6. I think he's taller than me. David Ragg, I feel like is like 6'10".
The Tall Authors Club.
Yeah, the club. Yes.
Yeah.
So you guys have covered 2 of what I want. I told these guys for a little bit of reference, these guys and gals, sorry, that I had some cool book mail today, like some of the coolest book mail I've gotten so far. And you've covered both of these authors, so I have to show them.
Yes.
The first one is.
Oh, nice!
Oh, I have that one. I have that one somewhere.
I haven't read it yet, and it's because
you're in for a treat.
Oh,
I've heard so many wonderful, just wonderful things.
I've got to read it as well. It's one I haven't got to yet either.
So it was on super sale on Amazon, like for $25 or something. I'm like, oh yeah, run that.
That's a deal.
And then one that I waited for like, when you order on Amazon, we're victim to like that instant like satisfaction, right? But I waited for this, and I'm because I'm going to collect them all in hardback, but the Darkness and Light hardcover, and particularly Ryan, and I know he's an inspiration to a lot of people, but he really, man, just when I started reading, I read The Fall first, and I said I'm going to start with paperback, but I know how beautiful his hardcovers are. And if I end up loving, which I do, just absolutely love his writing, I'm going to collect them all in hardcover. So that's what I got today. And I wanted to share that with you guys because I feel like you have experienced, especially like Patrick Rothfuss, and how much of an influence he is on this beautiful community.
Are we sharing book mail? Because I got some really good book mail.
Oh, it's my favorite.
What did you get?
Okay. All right.
This is the best part, when you get to see all these lovely books. It gladdens my heart.
Yes,
I am a little slut for the edges. Okay. I also got special book covers.
Oh, beautiful.
Pretty.
Nice.
Yeah.
Which ones are those, Beth?
These are Lee Bardugo's The Siege and
The Siege and
Storm.
Shadow. Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Those are
These are
wonderful.
These are special book covers I bought that are just for this particular size book, but they look cool. All right, let's see what else do I have?
This came yesterday. I had to finally go and pick that.
David T. Lift, my man.
One of the one of the beardsmen I had to add to my collection. So yeah,
He's
very
a brother of
excited
mine.
I can do that.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's what I got.
all good.
Demon in
Oh
White.
yes,
White.
UK,
Oh,
the
nice.
UK.
Nice.
Oh,
And I got
Beth
him.
Winnie again.
I haven't heard of him.
You haven't heard of him?
And it's a very vague, sentence that I just said, but yeah, I've not heard of him.
It's an angry robot book, which I love angry
Oh.
robot.
Of
Oh,
course,
I do
yeah.
too.
Okay, let's see. And I got a
Hey,
pretty.
John Palladino in the comments, my
Ooh.
man. Oh, look at that one.
Oh, Voyage of the Damned. I
Nice.
think one of our team members reviewed this. It's a UK published
Mm.
one, right? It's not been published
Yeah.
in the US though. That's
Yeah, I think
gorgeous.
so. Yeah.
Why is it
See,
the
I got-
UK always gets the most beautiful covers? I feel like.
Oh, right.
Oh, you
Oh,
got
I have-
Sean Speakman's. Oh, nice.
Yes.
I read the novella version of that.
Yes, I supported the Kickstarter. I see. I have a couple more here.
This is all bookman. Oh, Adrian.
That
Wow.
that I've got.
That's
I-
Do you have
bookman.
this
One
one?
sec, I'm going to show. Yeah, hang on. I'll
Good
show you.
one,
One
right?
sec.
So Adrian Tchaikovsky, I'll tell you a funny story because I edited it out. Man, I had this interview with him not too long ago, and of course I had
only
been
because
like,
I can
Go ahead,
one up
Charlie.
Beth slightly. I have a signed one.
yes.
Ooh.
I have signed ones.
Anyway, I picked it up in when I was in Scotland recently, so at a bookshop there. So I had to get the signed one. So
I love hearing all of these books that people that they just hold dear to their heart. You can hear it in their voice. It's wonderful. Charlie, that's amazing. That book in
That's
particular, I've read Children of Time, and I want to go to the fantasy side of Adrian. But the story I was saying was kind of funny. It wasn't funny in the moment, but it's funny now. I had this conversation planned with Adrian Tchaikovsky, somebody I look up to, obviously, and it was like 2 months in that I had planned it, and it was like 2 months later I talked to him. So I'd been looking forward to it for a while. Well, it had snowed here in Ohio, and we weren't able to take all 4 toddlers to the babysitter. There were multiple points where I'm like, hold on, Adrian. And they're screaming. and I'm like, dying. I'm sweating. In the video, you can see me, I'm sweating. And I'm just like,
He's a dad, isn't he? I mean,
Yeah, he is.
yeah.
He is.
yeah.
come
he
on,
is.
gets it. Yeah, he's a
he
really
was
nice man.
so cool about it. Like
Yeah.
totally, it was me sweating. Like he was so cool about it. But you know, it's one of those things I was looking forward to. And now that I look back on it, it was funny. But in the moment, I'm like freaking out.
Oh,
Just because it's like you hold people up.
Let's see. I have 3 more. Let's see. I got
Yes.
Oh, great.
How big
Nice.
of a box did you get?
Yeah, no doubt.
this
It
is
must have been
over
a
the
crate.
course of a week.
You and your postman are like, oh, okay.
that's nice.
Oh, you got that one. I
Adrian
love that
Award, yeah.
book. That
I
was one of my
know.
top reads from last
I
year.
know.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
I have
Okay.
The Last House. What is it? The Last House.
On Needle
Ooh, hang
Street?
on, what's this?
Yes. I haven't read
Yes,
it yet.
it was-
I've started it.
Which
It's
one
pretty
is
good.
this? I can't.
Okay. And this
Oh
is
my
the new,
gosh.
Wow.
The Nordic.
Yeah, this is
Ah,
the new
yeah.
trilogy.
Northern Lights, yeah.
Okay. And the last one, you might
Are you
not
sure?
know the significance of. Yeah, I'm sure. You might not know the significance of this, but it's pretty cool. I got it in Herbeck. I have this
Can't see it.
Oh, okay. The one you
Manacled.
reviewed. Yeah.
Oh
Manacle.
my god.
I don't know
That
what
title
that
has
is.
me interested.
What is it, Beth?
So Manacled is a hugely famous. What do they call it?
Fanfic.
Fanfic. Thank you.
Oh,
It's hugely famous fanfic.
Ah,
on after what happens after Harry Potter. It is
Oh, wow.
grimdark. It is
No
dark
way.
as fuck. It is the best.
I am so
And-
excited.
And yeah, I managed to get my hands on a bound copy because I liked it so
Wow.
much.
Why have I never heard of this?
yes, same. I've never heard of this at all.
no.
The
Massive.
grimdark
I will send the
continuation of Harry
links.
Potter.
Okay.
I have
yeah,
a
please,
review.
Yeah.
Please do.
I have
Please
a
do.
review up on before we go and with a link on it. It is insanely good. Just they're adults. It's adult. It's very adult.
Okay.
That's good.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's 1,200 pages too. Like, it's a journey.
That sounds
to go
like quite the
through.
journey. Sounds like a Stephen King journey. Like
Mm.
Stand.
It's one of the best books I've ever read, and it's total praise. It really is one of the best books I've ever read.
So I'm definitely never would ever think about not asking this question to John. I'm still here.
Mm.
What was that interview or experience for you that is just like, I'm going to remember that for quite some time?
Oh, I'm still pinching myself about the Patrick Rothfuss interview.
Yeah.
How did this actually happen? But there's 3 hours of video evidence that it did in fact actually happen. And
He was wonderful too.
he's so nice, and just
Mhm.
you know, to be able to meet someone whose, you know, book I had fallen in love with. It's just so beautifully written and such a great story. And he's someone who he cares so much about everything. And
Almost to a fault.
and yeah, I still remember when I got the text message from Beth, and she's like, "Hey, do you want to interview Patrick Rothfuss?" I was like, "Yeah, and I'd like to interview J.D. Salinger too." But you know, this is a testament to Beth. So she dreams big and she makes it happen. Everything that she's proposed, you know, she's made it happen, and I'm just really thankful to her for bringing me along for the ride here. And you know, that's the type of person that she is you know, not just that, but also anyone else who has ideas, things that they're passionate about, things that they want to pursue. She is 100% supportive of everyone. And she just enables everyone to bring all of their interests, bring their whole selves to the table, and is just unwaveringly supportive. So thank you for that, Beth.
We all love Beth.
Aw.
Well, she has cool books to showcase as well. That's
Yes.
as well.
Yeah.
I want to share something real quick, and it's and I know Beth, you're about this, and my wife kind of told me the other day, and something I didn't know about myself that I see in you, and that my wife sees in me, is that when somebody, particularly to you, let's say Brandon Sanderson or Patrick Rothfuss, because that's pretty high bar, you go after and you put yourself out there.
Mhm.
And in your experience with this, I feel like has to be similar to mine. And it's like those people who are obviously passionate about what they do, those people who reach out to them and they can recognize themselves and those who are reaching to gain, whether it's an interview or not just on the surface level, but knowledge or to share that passion with them. They're very human. It's a very human experience. It's not something that is intimidating. I've never been like shot down in a way that was mean. In fact, I can count on one hand where I've been told no. And I wanted to know, Beth, like, have you had that same experience?
Yeah, they're just people doing things.
Yeah.
And honestly, what's the worst that somebody could say? No?
No.
Or no, you're an asshole? Well, okay. You know, I don't need to interview you. That's totally cool. You sound like a chump.
Yeah.
I'll move on to somebody else. You know,
Yeah. Well said. Yeah.
there's just, it doesn't hurt to ask. And the worst they can say is no. And they're not going to be a jerk about it, honestly, because it would be bad for them. Can you imagine a publicist like going off on a book blogger or something when they had the audacity to ask to interview somebody?
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And if they
Yeah.
say no, that's the same thing as if you never asked in the first place.
Mm.
Yeah.
So there's
I
nothing
like
to
that.
lose.
And I've been told no lots and lots and lots.
Well, and I think that prepares you for a lot of things in life. Just like kind of, okay, here's a hurdle. We're gonna get over it. Let's move on.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna move on real quick to John. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll do this one and then we'll go there. So I
Can
would
I
love to
answer
know.
this question? I'm sorry. Can I answer this question really fast?
Well, yeah,
How did they
absolutely,
publish that fanfic?
Yes.
I paid somebody to do it. I paid a
Oh, wow.
bookbinder.
Huh.
Yeah, it's not allowed to be published. Like,
Oh.
it's not. This is Harry Potter fanfic. It's not allowed to be published. I paid somebody to do it. I even thought about, I'm going to learn to bookbind myself so I can leather cover some of my favorite authors' books, gold leaf and stuff. I got the press for Christmas.
Nice.
But yeah, I had to pay somebody to do it.
Damn.
That's next level, right? That's really next level.
I was like, I seen the question and I didn't understand it, Ithra. I'm so sorry because you're way ahead of me. It went over my head.
Yeah.
How did they okay. So so as a fanfic author, you can't publish that because it's not part of that
Well, it's someone else's intellectual property, I suppose.
Yes.
At the end of the day. Yeah.
So okay.
Yes. And I'll never
understand.
sell this. I have no interest in selling it. It's really just for my personal collection. I like hardback books because I like celebrating books. And I loved Manacled so much that I wanted a hardback for my collection because it's just brilliant.
Nice.
Beth, if you ever sell or hear of 3 other Joe Abercrombie special editions from the Broken Binding that I stare at every time we talk,
eBay.
Yeah. I know people are crazy. Come on,
Matt. I have something to show you. I'll have something to show you after the show about Joe Abercrombie. Then.
All right, I'm excited. All right, so what are you guys reading? Beth, you start, and we'll go to Mahir, Charlie, John.
What am I reading? No, don't start with me.
Okay, John. We'll start with John.
All right. Well, so one of my favorite books from last year, Mark Lawrence's The Book That Wouldn't Burn. Today, I read 2 new short stories from Mark that take place in the same universe here, the Library Trilogy. They're going to be released officially, I believe, this coming week on Monday. I've got the review written. It's in the drafts, Beth, before we go blog, so you can check it out. Beautiful artwork, too, from Tom Brown that has Wentworth the cat on the front. And just 2 lovely short stories about the fact that, once we read a book, it leaves us permanently changed. Like if we want to go back and recapture that feeling of reading something for the first time, we can't do that because the book has changed us. And so this short story collection is called Returns. And basically, if you have a book that you return to the library, the book is the same as when you got it out, right? It's the same book, but you yourself have irreversibly changed as a result of reading that book. And both of the stories in this volume are on that theme. The second story in there was especially cool. It was kind of a homage to The Catcher in the Rye, where the main character, hated reading it in high school, but then reads it again and returns it to the library, and the librarian tells him to read it every decade and report back to her about what he thinks. And as he goes through the decades of his life, having all these different life experiences, he keeps getting new things from the book and seeing, new interpretations. And it's just beautifully written. And the Library Trilogy is it's like the ultimate platform for short stories because, it's infinitely large in terms of space and time. And so basically he can make whatever out of it that he wants, but just 2 lovely stories. So be sure to look for those this coming week.
Amazing. Mark created something like having the experience of guessing what the Book That Wouldn't Burn is going to be about and how it's going to be represented, and then finding out what it really is an experience in itself. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Charlie, man, what are you reading, brother?
Oh, gosh. Well, 2 things. I'm sort of peeing out of Anatomy of Fear, which I backed and got my physical copy again when I was over in the UK, which is great. So enjoying that. And then I'm also reading. Yeah, that's so many good stories in here. And, you look at the authors and the little signature pages is there as well. So that's all good. Also reading, City in the Dragon's Eye by Jordan Loyal Short, which I'm reading at the moment, which is a fun it's got dragons, secret society. It's a fun, light it's a nice, fun book in between some of the grimmer stuff or dark stuff I've read recently. So it's nice to, before that, I finished Callous and Crow by another beardsman of
D.B. Rook.
I've got a bone to pick with him about the ending there. It hit hard. Like, I'm not forgiving him for it yet, but highly recommend that one as well. So
I'm going to throw up D.B. Rook, my man, Callous and Crow. There, that's him.
That's a cool cover.
It is, man.
Yeah.
You can.
It's a great book.
Absolutely. I'm the word that I love, Craftian influence. Could you repeat the name of the dragon book you just said?
Oh, sorry, yeah, it's City in the Dragon's Eye. I think it's coming out mid-Feb. I think it hasn't. It's an art copy I'm reading at the moment. It hasn't come out yet. So,
and who was the author?
It's a Jordan Loyal Short.
All right.
Yeah.
What a name! That's a wonderful title.
So that's good. But that's good fun. So I'm enjoying that. I think I'll probably finish that up soon and then work out what comes after that. But yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Charlie. Mahir, what are you reading, man?
I'll firstly reading all the SPFPO finalists. We're kind of 5 down, 4 more to go because we already reviewed our original finalist. I am finishing Robert Jackson Bennett's The Tainted Cup. It's almost so I can get my review out next week. I also finished Rachel Aaron's, To the Bloody End. It was her urban fantasy / Changeling trilogy in the DFZ world. I'm a big fan of Rachel Aaron, so I love that series.
Me too. He introduced her to me, by the way.
Rachel Adams?
Rachel Aaron.
No, Rachel Aaron, yeah.
Aaron, okay.
Aaron. And so I'm finishing those. And then just a couple of days ago, I found out that The Doors of Midnight, R.R. Wordy's sequel to the first binding, is on NetGalley. So I managed to snag a copy. So that is on my Kindle. And then I'm also reading a murder mystery thriller called Instrument of Darkness by John Connolly, who is also one of my favorite authors. And his book is coming out. So those are the books which are right now. And unfortunately, I don't have paper copies because I prefer, my wife is like, if you can read it on in an ebook form, you're not getting the paper copy. So
I think as book lovers, we find that at first we buy all these physical copies, and then we find those particular ones that we want to just cherish forever. And because you soon find out that shelf space is limited. And I build my own. When I look up, I'm looking at my shelves that I built, and I've built 2 in my living room, and there's never enough space. There really isn't. So I love that. I do my ebook reading, but I love those. I'm with Beth. I had to grab those 2 hardcovers because I will forever look at those and just cherish them.
Yeah, I think I'm the same. I went for a period of just ebooks because it was cost books in Australia really expensive and it's cost a lot to get here. So, and then now I've still got into reading things there's a couple of either I've been very lucky the authors have sent me the books I've loved or really cherished ones signed or otherwise. So I can see that sort of families say, but have you read those? Yeah, I've read all those. Well, why have you got? It's because it's nice that tangible thing. It's it's I forget.
Nice.
Yeah, that's it. They smell nice, the touch, you look at them, it's nice to have that tangibility to things as well, I think.
Yeah. And especially if an author sends it to you signed, it's got that personal feel to it. It's got that relationship,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's definite connection to it then, yeah.
Absolutely. Beth, what are you reading?
Okay, so I have a couple SPFPO books to go. I have the Baby Bow books now, the finalists for Baby Bow to start
Old
looking
Sphinx.
at. Old Sphinx. I think Baby Bow's cuter.
Easy to say.
And then, let's see. And then what do I got? I tend to read 4 or 5 books at a time.
I know, me too.
Yeah, let's see.
I'm
A Letter to the Luminous Deep is one. And then How to Become a Dark Lord and Die Trying.
Django
Wexler. Let's see what else. Those Who Dwell in Darkness. I just bought the audio for that.
Oh yes. Oh my gosh. I have to throw it up. My dude Steve McHugh, right?
Yeah, I just bought the audio book for that so I can listen to it.
Yeah, I definitely, that's on my must-get list.
I seen that cover and I'm like, I have to read that. There's a dog that just looks vicious.
What else have I got? When Among the Crows by Veronica Roth. I've got a lot of stuff coming up.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
So is that an e-reader or a tablet?
It's a Nook, or it's not a Nook. It's an iPad.
Oh, iPad. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I've tried to read on an iPad.
And I have a Kindle so I can take notes.
Yes. Very cool. So what I'm reading right now is I didn't grab the first book. This is the second book. And let me just, this is my first Sword and Sorcery. John, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. Howard Andrew Jones.
Oh, nice.
It's knocking it out of the, yes, Lord of a Shattered Land. There it is. Oh my gosh.
Shout out to
Isn't it
John
great?
Robert.
It's so good.
Oh,
What
it's very
is
good.
that?
So it's like a fantasy reimagining of what if Hannibal, after losing the Punic Wars, but it's set in the secondary fantasy world. The character is called Hanuar, which obviously based on Hannibal. His city is destroyed by the Roman Empire in that world, and it's basically a series of short stories, but in the classic sword and sorcery style, but written with in the New Age style. And it is fantastic. The world building is gorgeous. The writing is superb, and Hanuar. I don't know. I mean, after reading so much dark fantasy, I actually want to read about like a classical hero, and it is fantastic. Yeah. I've got the second book. I've not started reading it. I mean, I've read it partially, but it's short stories. You have to read them in the way they're presented. But the first book was phenomenal.
It's a really intelligent read too, because he's not. I mean, he's using his mind to overcome these beasts and
That sounds
other
cool.
opponents and stuff. And the format is great too, because it's a short story format. So each story is kind of it's self-contained, and he has the ability to switch up his style a bit across stories. But at the same time, they're interconnected in a way that it builds up this whole of the overarching plot. And it's just one of those instances where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. It's just, it's so well done.
Nice.
Just said it beautifully.
So eloquent, John. So eloquent.
He is, man.
You're amazing in your reviews. You're amazing to listen to. This is why I love
Okay,
it.
now I want to read.
So I have to say, my man Johnny Douglas over here in the comments, and so Howard Andrew Jones has been on my list to read for a while. And John got a hold of me. He's like, "Have you read these yet?" And I said, "No." He's like, "I'm sending you the books." So he sent them to me, and I've been
he sent them to me too.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And he just thank you, John, because it's what I needed as a reader and a writer. And I told Howard this. I said, like, you have shown me more of the vein that I want to write than I've been reading for quite some time. I've been reading lots of epics, sci-fi, like Christopher Rocchio and like John Gwynne, stuff like that. And I am gravitating towards the prose that is a little faster paced, a little more classic in a modern way. Very much enjoying this, John. Thank you. And thank you, Howard. Yeah.
By the way, another one to check out if you like this style too is Daniel Maidman's book, The Exile of Zanzibar. Book, it's kind of similar in how it's written and kind of the antiquity type of feel that it has to it, although it is in a second world that has some callbacks to Italy, Roman Empire times. And Daniel Maidman is also an artist, and he's got this beautiful interior artwork throughout the book that he did himself. So that's one where it's definitely worth investing in a hardcover of that book too. And
oh my gosh. I had to say, Daniel sent me his book a couple months ago, and I told him that it was on my 2024 reads. I have that, and I'm so glad you brought that up. That like moved it back up.
I did not know this. This is
Can you hold the book up one more time? Can you hold the book up one more time?
Yep. Sorry. Oh, me? Okay.
Yeah.
No.
Sorry about that.
Can I see it? Okay.
Yep. Are you able to see it?
Howard Andrew Jones.
He's so nice, by the way. He sent me such a kind note after he read my review, and well, Daniel Maidman did too. They're just both super nice people.
We should interview him if he's amenable.
Yeah.
There you go.
Doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah, there you go.
No, I can tell you he will love that, because I've been interacting with him as well, because he was sending, I had asked him for this copy and everything. Lovely person, like Howard Andrew Jones. You should definitely interview him. He's he also runs the Blackgate magazine. Like, he has got a very amount of huge history in the sword and sorcery genre and everything. He's like totally into it, and that's why it shows into this book.
Nice.
Why it is so good. That
he also edits this magazine.
Mm-hmm.
And all right.
The dude is just he's really just hit me in a way that so when I read the first two chapters of that the Lord of the Shatterland. I wrote for the first time, and it's not good. It's just, it was my first chance to write in a way that I was kind of happy with. I'm getting towards that way, or I'm getting towards where I want to be, and that process that I'm trying to find. And he has helped me on that journey. And I think it's a little faster paced than an epic. I don't know if I can do an epic. Maybe someday. I love to read epics.
Matt,
yeah, man.
You should check out David Gemmell. You should really check out David Gemmell.
Mm-hmm.
Legend has been on my TBR since, I'll tell you, Mike's book reviews. He did Legend, and huge inspiration to me as a booktuber. So I'm very much looking forward to it. Is that Brent Weeks?
Yep. Have you read this?
I haven't.
This is right up your alley.
All right. I made a mistake because I got his newest. What is it called?
Lightbringer?
Night Angel Nemesis.
Oh, that's a sequel to this trilogy.
Yeah, and I didn't know that. So I've got that one. I'm ready for it, but I need to read those first. Yeah, that's exciting. So there's a couple questions we're probably not going to get to, but there's one that I definitely want to before we get off here. And we'll start with John. Who are a few authors / books in genres outside fantasy or sci-fi that you love and would recommend for somebody like me? Because there's lots of us out there that are wanting to get into those other genres as well.
Of course. So how about a couple of adjacent genres? So one of my favorite authors of all time is Haruki Murakami, a famous Japanese author. And he, I love Japanese books, especially quirky ones like this. And he has a lot of magical realism, so kind of fantasy adjacent. This one is called 1Q84, and it's got kind of a semi-transparent cover, so you can see inside here too. And it is, well, I guess you could call it almost like a portal fantasy, although it is magical realism. I think fantasy lovers would love his work. And he combines kind of a Japanese style with a Western style too. It's full of musical references and kind of Western cultural references as well. And then horror. I love horror too. And my favorite author there is Gemma Amor.
Oh,
she is amazing.
She's a sweetheart also.
Oh, yeah.
She's
so nice.
Full immersion.
Yes. So I've read, I don't know, like 5 or 6 books by her at this point. Everyone has been just outstanding. This one is kind of a sci-fi horror. And it's a very honest account of postpartum depression.
Wow.
And basically the narrator seeks kind of a technological, going into an AI world to get the psychotherapy to help her get through it. But then the line between the AI and reality gets blurred, and her depression takes on this physical form of like this shadow creature kind of eating up everything in its path. And it's so good. But I mean, literally pick up anything by her and it'll be great.
She's got a short story. She's actually done a couple short stories with GDM. Yeah. And she's just every time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Charlie.
Oh, wow. Outside of the genre, well, there's 2 that I've read recently. They're more non-fiction, but there's a couple of books I read by Dean Canazas, who's a big ultra runner. I do a lot of running, and he's just done some insane, like 200-mile run through Death Valley. Like, I think one of the races they had to run on the white lines of the road because it was so hot their shoes were melting on the tarmac.
Oh, wow.
It's that sort of so that's quite inspirational. This one's a little bit more pertinent about older, wiser, stronger. So how to sort of keep going when the body's aging a little bit. So, but it's very easy style to read, and I think even if you're not particularly into the running, it's just that sort of mindset, how you can sort of overcome things. So that was quite good. And the other one I read last year, which is a sort of history novel. So it's called X Troop. And what is the story about? There's Winston Churchill in the Second World War recruited Jewish guys from Eastern Europe and things like that, and to create a commando unit to go back into Germany, to almost like the real Inglourious Bastards, but without the hype and stuff that goes along with it. And these guys had to took on, they literally were told within an hour, you have to pick a name, a new identity. It was all race, because if they got caught, they were going to be killed because of their heritage. And so a lot of cases, they'd lost family, and they were basically, willing to do pretty much anything to get back. And some cases, they after all, they kept those identities, so their families never knew their history of what they've done. And so it was a really interesting sort of, I was interviewed with some of the final people before they died. It's what's it called, ex-troops. So basically, when Churchill trained this counterintelligence guerrilla sort of type tactics with these guys that had come out of Europe, could speak German, could go undercover. So ex-troop by Lee Garrett it is. So if you're
ex-troop by Lee Garrett.
Yeah. So if after something that's a little bit, it's not always an easy read, but given the subject matter, but it's something that's, so some real life heroes that are in the world. Yeah, exactly.
Real quick before I go to Mahir, Ithra Munchwal, I want to say Cassandra Call has been on my radar for sure. She seems to be, I've heard many wonderful things. And then like this new book, I don't remember what it's called, but I seen it at Walmart, and it looks right up my alley as far as like the horror aspect. So thank you for saying that, Ithra. Mahir.
Okay. Well, like I mentioned, John Connolly. I'm a big fan of John Connolly. If you haven't heard or read of him, he's really big. He's an Irish author, similar to Ryan Cahill. He writes, I don't want to call them murder mysteries, but they're like murder mystery thrillers, but there's a hint of supernatural. But the best part is the writing. Like, you will love how lyrical and how funny he is. And he's the second writer who writes about Maine, and Maine, frequently is the northeast of England. So besides Stephen King, he actually has brought the northeast of not England, but the US really live. That's one guy. I know you, Matt, love him, but for those who don't know him, James Rollins.
Yes.
I love James Rollins. Yes.
I love him because he writes adventure fantasy where the environment is an actual character in itself. So I'm a huge fan. James, actually, I got to meet him and I got to hang out with him. That was one of my cherished moments. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
I met him a long time ago. So he's that. I don't know if people have heard of this guy, but he's the original self-published author, Matthew Riley.
He's Australian.
Yes. He self-published his first book back in 1998. He wrote it on the bus. He handed it out. Got published, got picked up by traditional publishing, and writes the most insane action-packed thrillers, but they're not political. Because I know a lot of times, when you hear military thrillers, it's always like there's going to be a political angle to it. There's no politics. It's just fun. And he actually even directed a film on last year on Netflix. I forget what it was called, but it stars Elsa Pataki, the wife of Chris Hemsworth, and he's amazing. So if you haven't read him, you should absolutely. And then this lady is the scariest horror author you might have never heard of. Mo Hader. She doesn't write horror. She writes about people, and she writes crime fiction, so as to speak. But this lady is hands down the scariest writer I've ever met. She will make you scared of human beings, and that's the way without, or like some of her books, I should genuinely want people, they're depressing because the way she ends the book, it's going to depress the hell out of you. But there's art in that. Unfortunately, she passed away, but she's
my wife will pick that up.
Yeah. And
I think, Mahir, I want to say that you and I feel like on fantasy, I align with all of you. But on those like murder mystery or scary personal authors, man, I got to check out pretty much everybody. You said, John, the Haruki
Murakami.
Yes. I'm very much looking forward to that. But that sounds amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Mahir. Beth.
Okay, so I read, I love horror novels, and I love graphic novels. And so I've got course, Snow Crash.
Ooh.
Mm.
I have a Snow Crash from every decade that it's been printed,
I
just
believe
for
you.
funsies.
Just for funsies.
Just for funsies. Sabrina, this is really fun. It's the same. Let's see, what's his name?
Is it the same Sabrina the Teenage Witch that I watched in the 90s?
No,
Oh, okay.
no.
Sorry.
But it is the same Sabrina the Teenage Witch that was on HBO.
Okay.
That
Oh, the
got
TV
made
show.
recently.
TV show, yeah.
A little
Yeah,
cat.
Chilling
like a little black cat.
Adventures. Yeah, and it's the same guy wrote Jughead as a werewolf. They're so good. And then, of course, Saga.
She's picking her nose.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's picking her nose.
That's amazing.
And let me see. I've got a couple more that are not. Let's see. Do you guys know Shauna McGuire? Or of Shauna McGuire? Well, she has a horror pen name called Myra Grant, and she has probably my favorite series, at least my favorite horror series, the News Flesh series. It's a zombie series, but it's like what happens years after a zombie apocalypse, and it's so good. And that's the bloggers are where the people get their news and information because they're the only ones who are trusted. I don't know. It's fantastic. It's won so many awards too. It's really wonderful.
Bet I have to mail those to you.
Huh?
Yeah.
I have to mail those to you.
Thank you. And
Charlie,
then,
what was you saying?
Oh, no, just saying that the zombie thing runs there. That's sort of 28 months later, and I was reading it last week. They're talking about making it 28 years later.
So they got 28 days, 28 months, 28 years now.
Months and 28 years. So that's where it's heading next, apparently. So that just
okay.
sounds like something to watch, maybe, if that's the interest.
Yeah.
Those are fun movies. That'd be okay. And the last one I got is Savages by Don Winslow. I love that book. I love that book.
Savages. But I usually don't write down as many recommendations as I've been given in this interview, by the way. You guys, I totally trust every one of you.
If you love Narcos, his Border trilogy by Don Winslow is hands down brutal. No, like as brutal and as grimdark as it can get, but it is fantastically written. And it's
Don Winslow?
Don Winslow.
Amazing.
Yeah. Savages is part of the Savages trilogy.
So I'm going to throw.
If you like your zombies,
go ahead.
Sorry, just quickly. I was going to say, if you like your zombies, I did my review of Undead Samurai by Baptiste. That is absolutely it was my first book, one I've read of his, but it's feudal Japan, samurai.
Okay, now I got to read that. I mean,
it's the introduction. It's a period in history where the guns are starting to be introduced to Japan. So you've got this sort of mix between start of modern warfare and still traditional archers and samurai and zombies, but it's not sort of zombies are chucked in for the sake of it. It's really well written historical sort of fiction, but with some zombies in there. So it's I think it's coming out in 2 weeks. I think well worth checking out.
Okay,
I've started reading it, Charlie. And, and it's very much one of those like instant. I'm sucked in. Like it doesn't spare no time.
No, that's it. It's fast paced. It's sort of Rogue One meets the Army of the Undead, but much better.
So I'm going to throw a few out there. I'm glad that I have never heard this recommendation given, and maybe you've read it, maybe you've heard of it. So the first one you've probably heard of is James Rollins and Rebecca Cantrell's trilogy they did together.
Yep.
And it's the Order of the Sanguine, the Order of the Sanguine series. So good.
Vampires.
I haven't read it.
Yes. It's a good mix of like the vampire theme with like the Order of the Catholic Church. Very good.
Yeah.
There's 3 books they co-authored together. Innocent Blood. There's a few. I'm looking. I can't see it. But Order the Sanguine series is a trilogy. Very good. The other, which is also a trilogy, I've only read the first one, is by a gentleman named Brian Catling, and he is passed. But The Vor.
The War, yeah. He passed away.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it's
Is that
weird.
VOR?
VORRH.
Yeah, I don't know it.
And the other two are also made up words by him, and I can't remember. One's like a monster he's created, but it's like this weird mix of like fantasy and like sci-fi with maybe a little bit of I don't really know how to judge it. But really it's crazy. It's weird. It's different. It's something unique. So I would definitely recommend those. But the kids have returned from the babysitters. So this has been one, and I'm being honest. I always love talking to you guys. Mahir, you are part of that absolutely now. And you guys just 100% make me inspired and want to continue this journey and just know what I'm doing means not just to me, other people, because what you do means a lot to me. And I want to thank you for letting me borrow all of you busy people to hang out with me.
Oh,
Thank you
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, like I'm still sitting in awe that all the people on this call and interview and going, how am I here? Oh, hello.
Hi.
Hey, it's
That's my
Renee.
man. That's my man, Benjamin and Jackson there.
Hey,
Hey, guys.
Benjamin and Jackson.
Maybe Matthew Jackson.
But,
And this a Benny and baby Matthew.
Yes, baby Matthew. There's a baby Matthew too,
Oh,
and
hey, baby
Amelia
Matthew.
too. So, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, and for you guys that were here live. I always love your comments. It's such a wonderful thing. Hold on, Bubba, 1 second. And for 1 second, Bubba. And for all you guys that will watch in the future, it means so much to me. So thank you guys again, and we will talk soon. Say
Hi.
Yeah, take care, guys.
Bye bye.
Everyone.
Bye. You got your food. Bye.
Bye, baby beards.
See you guys.
They're like little
Take care, everyone. Have a
minis.
good day. Yeah, they did well.
See you
Catch you
later.
later.
Bye.
Bye.